Hello and welcome to this live interaction with me, Ashish Parekh. Now, cybercrimes have been on the rise and most of these occur via online transactions. Now, in order to counter this and secure credit and debit cards, the Reserve Bank of India has issued new guidelines which will be effective from 1st October 2020 and are expected to improve the security and convenience of card transactions. So, I'll just list out all of these new guidelines which RBI will be bringing in from October 1st. First up, as per the new rules, people will now be able to register for preferences such as opt-in or opt-out services, spend limits and other services for online transactions, international transactions and also contact-less transactions. Next up, this also means that debit and credit card services will only be enabled for transactions at ATMs and also point-of-sale terminals. Third one is that cardholders on both debit and credit will now have a new facility to set up a transaction limit as well. The next guideline is that there will be an option to allow or not to allow a particular service on their credit and debit cards such as ATM, POS, e-commerce or NFC. Now, all of these banks, card issuing companies have been asked by RBI to disable online payment for all debit and credit cards that have never been used for online or for contact-like transactions in India or abroad. If the card holder, for example, wants to use the credit or debit card outside India, then they will need to take the permission from the bank to enable international transactions. The card holders will also have the ability to enable or disable the NFC or rather the contactless facility, which currently has a limit of ₹2,000 per day without a PIN. Cardholders will also be able to set a limit on various transactions. So these are all the guidelines that have been issued by RBI and will come into effect from October 1st. And to speak more about this and give us an idea as to what exactly is the reason these are being brought in and what exactly these could mean for the customers, I have with me banking expert S. Narendra. So first of all, sir, thank you for joining us. What do you make of these new guidelines that have been issued by the RBI?
Good morning. See, at the outset, according to me, it is a continuing process. It is like a business as usual. What RBI is, has implemented many such reforms because of the increase in not only cybercrime, but on the overall, it is the credit card, debit card frauds that have happened, and normally the banking frauds that have taken place for the last 7 to 8 years. The survey says, the study says that about 151,000 fraud cases have happened, out of which 913 crore is the quantum involved in debit and credit card frauds. See, the post demonetization, it was a total transition and transformation to digital platform, right? So, and it was aiming at paperless, faceless, and it should be cashless. These are the three important paradigm shifts that they wanted. That is paperless, cashless, and faceless. So when such thing was implemented, and last 5 years, we have seen the transactions have increased, humongous, quantum wise, and use of credit and debit cards, and basically without the actual cash being transacted, because the aim is not to involve too much cash transactions and to use the digital platform. At the same time, there are a lot of misuse. The very idea of implementing this particular, whatever the reforms that are taking place and the transaction implications that are there in the new from October 1st, the idea is to prevent frauds, to prevent misuse, and to ensure that the customer is the king here. You see, what happened earlier, certain limits were being given, and then we used to operate them in a blanket platform, whether it is ATM or even a point of sale or POS. But now, every transaction, it only when you go there and when you access, you are activating at the POS or at the ATM. And then you are going to operate. And this is a continuation. Though we are just seeing that it is from October, this has happened from last January only. January only, the circulation was there of the guidelines. And post March 16, every card or debit card can be deactivated by the RBI of all the users. And whoever have not used the ATM or the POS, the entire thing can be deactivated by the RBI. And such guidelines have been issued to respective issuers. That is the issuance of the bankers, that they can deactivate such credit card holders or debit card holders who have not used the card either at international credit cards or at the ATM or at the point of sale. So that means to prevent when frauds are the cards being misused. So now such people who, even if suppose they are having credit or debit cards, now they have to reactivate and apply for a reactivation to respective bankers or to the Visa or the Mastercard, the credit card providers, and then now enter a fresh PIN and then activate. And when they activate, only the ATM or the POS gets activated, and you can reset the limit depending on the overall limit. Suppose the 50,000 limit is there, I can set the limit as 10,000. So that every time when I reset, that means I'm not only activating, I'm preventing the misuse of the card. And again, when I use, I can reset the limit. So that means it is a need-based use to prevent frauds and cybercrimes is increasing terrifically, especially post demonetization. And moreover, in the fresh scenario of COVID, which will be the new normal or new abnormal, so many have lost jobs, and there are many crimes that are taking place. So the white-collar crimes, the RBI study also says, can be on the increase. So to prevent such misuse and fraud, so these are the measures that have been implemented, especially opt-in and opt-out is an excellent measure where you can not only use the card based on need basis, you can fix a particular limit, and after that, again, you have to reset the whole thing whenever we want. So, and international usage is totally been forbidden now for any, we have to apply. If somebody has to go abroad, they have to reactivate the international credit card usage and set a new limit what we get from the user or the banker. So that means international, like earlier what used to happen, international card was like a automatic issuance. So it was a blanket permission. So international card usage is now need-based, has to be freshly applied and then taken and then used. And similarly, local, to prevent these frauds, everything is reset and has to be reset with every transaction, and a pre-limit can be used or set so that these things can be phishing and the frauds, misuse of cards, loss of PIN, all these are avoided.
Absolutely.
At the same time, yeah.
Yes, sir. Also, like you rightly mentioned, this opt-in and opt-out measure is, the need of the hour, given the fact that, digital security becomes prime importance, because we've got a lot of people who are for the first time starting to, engage in digital transactions. We've got a lot of people coming on digital as far as banking is concerned. But at the same time, sir, one thing that we also need to keep in mind, and this is something that even a lot of cybersecurity researchers that I've spoken to also say, is that these guidelines are good. The body making sure that, all of these things are secure is something that is a good move. At the same time, digital hygiene is something that also needs to be kept in mind, given the fact that users need to be kept aware about how can they save their particular banking accounts and also all of their money from being siphoned off. For example, these guidelines will make sure that people do not, that the hackers and all of these people are not able to siphon off money. But at the same time, most of the scams that we are seeing, for example, even SBI has issued many warnings over the past couple of weeks about how people are getting fraudulent messages, and at the same time a lot of people are falling for them. So clearly there is a lack of understanding even now as to how exactly phishing functions, because clearly one thing people don't realize is what kind of links they are getting. Two, they don't realize what kind of websites they are supposed to visit, and also at the same time they do not realize how to differentiate between a legitimate mail that has come from the bank or an illegitimate mail that possibly has come from a hacker. So at the same time, do you think there needs to be more awareness that needs to be created as far as these online transactions are concerned? Because yes, guidelines will make sure that the illegal transactions or hacking is curbed to a bit, but at the same time people also need to be aware. But because when people give out their details, there is little to nothing that banks can do.
Absolutely, you are right on. You have hit the bull here on the head very clearly. The point is, I was about to tell you that number one, there are many transactions and then messages that are being received where a user can get confused and can be misled, and phishing can happen, hacking can happen. And the best method is, from what I have noticed, there should have been more awareness programs over a period of time by not only by the issuers or the bankers, but by regulators, especially the RBI and the income tax authorities. For example, if you go to the net, as citizens, we have very clear messages where what kind of SMS are legitimate, what kind of, even the IDs are given. For example, ITCom dot. So we are very clear that only originating with such kind of messages are legitimate, and they have also given what kind of sites are misleading and are fraudulent ones. Similarly, the income tax authorities. Similarly, the RBI and the bankers. So very clearly, so such education programs should have run and more awareness should have been created. It is not late. I mean, they have to have like very clear. They should use channels and media, print media and visual media, and go on educating like how they did on GST, how they did on KYC especially, and linking Aadhaar to PAN card and all. Such programs should be there at every person, and then they should be educated as to which are the legitimate sites and how messages can be and then the link, whether how to know it's legitimate or illegal website or a link. So all these things have to happen over time, and then it has to be done. Because October, suddenly it has come, but actually it has come from January, and the cutoff date for discontinuance was March 16th. So these things, most of them are not aware. Suddenly, everybody's card gets deactivated. So sometimes this can also lead to panic also.
Exactly,
because most of them do not know that this is being implemented on October 3rd. So it can be remedy worse than the melody for some time. So this confusion should be avoided. There should be widespread awareness program, print media and visual media, and then education series have to be there so that the users will know the do's and don'ts of cards and what are the types of frauds that can happen, like a stolen card or a pin misplaced or a wrong pin, phishing and the internet hacking. So all these things case-wise and then point-wise have to be educated so that the user will know that the tools that they have is for good and not for losing money.
Absolutely. Like you rightly mentioned, influx of technology is appreciated, but at the same time, emphasis on preparing or making sure that the users are also capable enough of using this technology without being siphoned off of their hard-earned money is also important.
Absolutely, because all age group, people are using, and it has quadruplated the use of digital platform, which will be the new normal post-COVID also.
Also, one last question before we end this live discussion. When we talk about fraudulent transactions, especially the ones that happen from overseas, it is almost impossible to recover the money. I mean, the procedure is too complicated, and they end up spending more money than they actually have lost. So a lot of people give up on that. But this new move will also restrict international usage and or will have a spending cap which makes sure that no misuse happens. So this is another interesting move which will make sure that a lot of international fraudulent activities which happens, because a lot of people realize that there is a huge chunk of user base in India which does not really have the sort of digital hygiene to keep themselves safe. So that targeting is also curbed with these new guidelines.
Absolutely right, because on one particular score of international card, which was coming automatically, everybody would have been happy when they receive a courier saying international debit card, international card, oh, I can use it anywhere, correct. But at the same time, the other side, whoever is doing a fraudulent transaction, aiming at that, could easily deceive, even though somebody is not traveling. Because how many people travel? Most minimum. So such people, when they go, they will activate henceforth their, whatever required use, so that he knows what he is using, he knows the limit, and then once he travels, he is using foreign exchange, so I have to return the foreign exchange or keep it for my next, depending on the limit. So it is use-based and need-based. Otherwise, what happens is greed-based. So unlikely to misuse, because a person doesn't travel at all and he has an international debit card in his pocket. So totally avoided. Especially when it comes to international, that particular norm or a guideline or a stipulation is a wonderful one, and definitely it will prevent, because subsequent to international fraud, it is very difficult to trace the origin, and it can lead to money laundering. It can lead to problems of identification of the layering, placing or layering, and then the consolidation of the fraud also.
Absolutely. So thanks a lot for joining us on this live interaction. That was S. Narendra clearly pointing out towards the guidelines and how they are meant to make sure that people stay safe from all of these rising number of online frauds that are happening, which are ending up making sure that people's hard-earned money is flushed out of their bank accounts. Do let us know what you guys think about these new guidelines issued by RBI in the comment section below, and also do not forget to like, share and subscribe to News9 Digital. Thanks for watching.